Hello there and welcome into another edition of the JMac Podcast. Please take a minute and like this video, share it, comment in our comments. In fact, today I'm going to be asking for your help as I've been really caught up in a lot of thought. I don't know why, but the words of President Trump from the last podcast, you heard it, screaming banner headlines. The president says he likes to downplay COVID-19 because he wants to avoid panic. And that statement, he wants to avoid panic, has been ringing in my ears. It's just been haunting me for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's because there's some irony there. I don't know. But as I've been thinking about this, I thought I would put the question to you. Now, we used to do this segment on KSL called You Do the Monologue. And this is where instead of me coming out outright and telling you how I feel, I asked you to do so through the texting. And this time we'll do it through the comments on Facebook and of this podcast. I want to know what you think. Now, since I had that podcast, I have received a ton of comments. People who support the president said, yeah, it's a great idea that he downplays COVID-19 because we don't want to panic. This is great leadership. And then I had other people saying people died because he downplayed the coronavirus. And the only reason he did it was to get elected, not to avoid a panic. So a lot of debate and discussion on the Facebook page. In fact, more than I think any other discussion that we've had on Facebook. So consider this a continuation of that discussion. What I want to do is I want to play for you some of the more common things that our president says. And your job is to answer one single question. Are these the words of a man who wants to avoid panic? If he downplayed the coronavirus to avoid panic, then is he downplaying other important issues in our society that might cause a panic as well? Are there cases where extreme rhetoric could possibly create panic? And if he is truly trying to be a great leader and truly trying to avoid panic from the people instead of get elected like other people believe, then certainly this idea will play out through other aspects of his life. And you won't hear him use charged rhetoric that potentially could cause a panic, right? Am I wrong? Is that too much to assume that if he likes to downplay COVID because he doesn't want panic, then he'll downplay other things because he doesn't want panic? There should be some level of consistency there, right? Am I wrong about that? I don't know. You tell me. It's your job. You're going to do the monologue this time in our comments. You're going to be the one to answer the question. Do these quotes sound like somebody who is downplaying to avoid panic? So I'm going to play these for you, and then we will see what you think.
Our radical Democrat opponents are driven by hatred, prejudice, and rage. But you have no choice but to vote for me because your 401ks, down the tubes, everything's going to be down the tubes. So whether you love me or hate me, you got to vote for me. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people. Unfortunately, there's a growing radical left movement that rejects the principle of equal treatment under the law. If this extreme movement is granted a majority on the Supreme Court, it will fundamentally transform America without a single vote of Congress. Radical justices will erase the Second Amendment, silence political speech, and require taxpayers to fund extreme late-term abortion. They will give unelected bureaucrats the power to destroy millions of American jobs. They will remove the words "under God" from the Pledge of Allegiance. They will unilaterally declare the death penalty unconstitutional. even for the most depraved mass murderers. They will erase national borders, cripple police departments, and grant new protections to anarchists, rioters, violent criminals, and terrorists. So you can't allow that to happen. That will be all of this incredible job that we've done will go down like that. It will be a terrible, terrible sight. It might even be a 1929 situation, so you have a chance to have the greatest numbers in history. You're almost there. We're almost back to where we were from the standpoint of the stock market. Think of that. But you'll have a crash like you've never seen before. You put the wrong person in office, you'll see things that you would not have believed are possible. And you know what? If Biden got in, that would be true for the country. The whole country would go to hell. If Biden wins, China wins. If Biden wins, the mob wins. If Biden wins, the rioters, anarchists, arsonists, and flag burners win. But no, you can't do that. You can't do the mail-in ballots because you're going to have tremendous fraud. And remember what I said. They'll be grabbing them from mailboxes. They'll even be printing them. They'll use the same paper, the same machines, and they'll be printing ballots illegally. And they'll be sending them in by the hundreds of thousands, and nobody's going to know the difference.
Now, these are just the video sound bites that I could find. If I went back to his Twitter account, which I'm tempted to do, but that's a lot of work. And honestly, the last thing I want to do is go back and read hundreds of Trump tweets. That's really not something that I'm interested in doing. But you and I both know that similar language, as you just heard, is all throughout his Twitter account. So it's a simple question. Is this language that he is using, does it create panic? Does it create followers who are fearful that if he loses, the entire world goes to you-know-where? And could this possibly create panic that results in negative actions from people? That's the question. Do these words sound like a man who is trying to avoid panic? Or do they sound like a man who wants to create panic in order to get reelected? And if so, did he downplay the COVID virus not because he wanted to avoid panic, because it would appear that's not a concern, but it was all about getting reelected? Those are your options. I leave the comments in Facebook up to you and your discretion. Please be kind. Please be respectful to each other. But to me, it's an important question. It speaks to motive. It speaks to whether or not our president really has a concern about avoiding panic, or is his concern something else entirely? So I look forward to reading your comments. And also, thank you once again to those of you who have supported this podcast. If you want to become a supporter, just look in the description of this podcast and you'll see a way to support us and help us to continue to bring fearless honesty to you every single day. And to those of you who have done so, thank you so much.